Welcome to Restaurant Deal Making Exposed, the only show that equips you with everything you need to know about restaurant transactions. In this show, we tell you all about how to make the sale or purchase of your restaurant not just possible, but successful. Now here are your hosts, ex-restaurateurs and seasoned brokers, Patrick Toda and Andy Mirabel.
All right, here we are, Restaurant Deal Making Exposed. We got episode 4. I'm Andy Mirabel, my co-host, friend, and co-agent, Patrick Toda. And we have a fantastic guest to introduce you to this time. We have Ben Koenig, born Benedict Koenig IV. He is the co-founder of Heritage Eats, a globally inspired multi-unit fast casual concept in the acclaimed Napa Valley and surrounding Bay Area. Ben also owns Mother's Tacos, a taqueria inspired by the vibrant flavors of Mexico City. He's also the creative force behind Napa Valley Lobster Co and several other innovative dining ventures. Ben pivoted his career as a financial analyst for Goldman Sachs in New York and dove into hospitality, doing design and concept development as well as working for renowned chefs and concepts in Napa. With an economics degree from NYU, Ben has the brain and background to have a fuller understanding of what a complete food concept should look like and what good business really is. He's a true overachiever in the culinary world and always includes philanthropic work as part of the job. Travel is also a love of his, which can be said to have heavily influenced all his concepts he has today. And I guess you added one more thing to your resume, ultra marathoning, endurance running. Is that what we just got the text about?
Yeah. This past week became an official ultra marathon runner. So
congratulations. I definitely, I aspire to do triathlons and other things like that when my body can handle it. And Patrick, you and I all know how hard it is to have like a true life balance in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
So sometimes better late than never when we realize we need to focus on ourselves physically and mentally and not just work ourselves to the bone, right?
100%. I mean, it'll happen fast. I mean, I was telling Patrick, I felt like I was relatively healthy, but it was just, having 9 years of owning Heritage and grinding. I got a simple physical from my doctor and she's like, "Hey, Ben, like your cholesterol is way too high," and I'm like, "Well, I own a taqueria, man. We put lard in all out of our food. I mean tacos all day long. What do you want to do?" But it was a wake up call. And as I mentioned to you guys earlier before we got on, I got 2 young kids, and so I want to be around for them. And I realized this is not healthy. I got to figure something out. So literally the following day, I went for a 3-mile run, and 3 months now into kind of this journey. I just finished my first 35-mile race over the weekend.
Congratulations. So, does your wife think you're a psychopath or thinks this is good for you?
We are working through all of this as healthy, communicative couples, married couples should. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, she's been real supportive. And at the same time, I know that our profession, restaurant industry in general, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy. It has taken a lot of time and energy. And so the thought of layering on something else that also takes a lot of time and energy for any spouse, I think would be intimidating and nerve-wracking, but we're working through it and we'll find balance,
Nice.
The right amount of balance when we need it.
I commend you because that stuff is intensely hard, and I know it is, and you know what, but it's good for you. I really commend you on it. So,
Ben, I don't know if you know, but Andy has, I believe, swam to Alcatraz several times. Is that correct, Andy?
Yeah, I've done the race many times and then done a couple of the ones that go over to Chrissy Field and over the Golden Gate and all that. So yeah, in other places.
Not as a convict, you didn't.
No. I was a convict for totally different reasons. Yes, yeah, totally different. But Ben, we want to know a little bit. You have such a storied past and such a interesting path from how you got into the hospitality industry. Can you give us a little background on how you got here? Yeah. And then I know we want to put a little special emphasis on your travels because it seems that's to be like a very core love of yours and obviously speaks through all your concepts.
I love to travel. I always have. Growing up, was born and raised mostly in New Jersey, central New Jersey. But my dad's job took us to Singapore for about 4 or 5 years of my early childhood. And so my parents, I think, did a great job of planting the travel bug, the curiosity bug in us at a very young age. And so travel for me has always been sort of soothing to the soul, fulfilling to the kind of inner parts of my core. And, grow up, go to college. I went to NYU. All of the big banks recruit to NYU. like a lot of us, it's what I want to do with my life. Oh, yeah, staying in New York, making a good amount of money, wearing a suit and tie all day long. Like that sounds exactly what we should do, you know? So I went to work for Goldman and enjoyed the rigor. I enjoyed the intellectual rigor. I enjoyed the people. I remained very good friends with a lot of my class from that 2-year, 3-year stint of life. But pretty early on, I realized, like, I looked at my boss, who's a good friend of mine. I looked at his boss, and they got a bunch of money. They're super successful by so many standards. I just didn't see myself being happy being them at their age, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my boss that, and he was like, wow, I mean, we just met. But, to his credit, understanding, he got it. And so I said, hey, with your guys' permission, I want to start working in restaurants. I've loved dining. I've loved eating.
You mean doing this concurrently? You're like, can I do this while having this job?
So I had asked for permission from the firm, any outside activity, you need permission. And usually they're like, we want to buy restaurants, we want to own them. We want to invest in them, not work in them.
Sure.
And to everyone's credit, we figured it out. And I said, hey, look, it's not going to interfere with my job. If it interferes with my job 1 iota, you let me know. And, it stops right away. My focus is you guys. And we had some friends who owned and operated a Michelin star rated restaurant in New York City called Public. It actually was my first job while they were constructing it. I was in high school. So fast forward a number of years, I'm at this point where I want to start working in restaurants, and I reached out to them. So while I was at Goldman, I'd work 60, 70 hours a week, Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday. And then I would kind of swap the suit for a black and white striped apron. And I worked brunch dinner doubles. I bar backed. I did a little bit of prep in the kitchen. Because I knew the owners of the restaurant group, they kind of filled me in a little bit on some of the bookkeeping and on payables and P&Ls and all that sort of thing. And I was just fascinated by it. I mean, to be quite honest with you, like those 20 hours a week for me became kind of like my sanctuary. They became my favorite 20 hours of the week, despite how challenging they were and how tired I was. And so at that point, I kind of knew, like, all right, maybe there's something to this. And so I did that for about 1.5 years. And as luck would have it, my time at Goldman was tailing off. And they were, by happenstance, opening a restaurant in the Napa Valley. My mom and dad are originally from Oakland. And at the time, I was younger than I am now, obviously. I didn't have a wife. I had no kids. And I said, yeah, sure. Let's go out. Let's move to Napa. Let's leave New York City behind. And I moved out to Napa, not knowing a soul in Napa.
And the only restaurant experience you had under your belt was for Public restaurant at that time.
Yeah,
wow.
That was it.
That
was it. I dove in. And so I came out here as what was coined to be the business manager. I moved out here about 4 months prior to open. So I really got kind of, baptized by fire with the opening. And I managed the books. I managed the payables. I kind of ran P&Ls. I helped with purchasing, these sorts of things. Well, 6 months into the job, we're way over budget. We're open, not as busy as we'd like. And our GM decides Napa's not for him. He wants to go back to New York City. And so we found ourselves really without a GM. And we had a strong kitchen team in place. And I'm like, well, guys, we can't afford to hire anybody that's actually worth, being a GM. So like, hey, I'll help kind of get me involved in some of the front of house stuff. And so I then became sort of the de facto GM of that restaurant for about 1 year. And that was, again, another kind of baptism by fire in kind of the fine dining setting. And so I did that for about 1.5 years and kind of came back to one of those points of just like listening to your heart, listening to your soul a little bit. And I was like, kind of need to do something. I kind of need to like change the game right now. And I didn't have a wife, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have kids. And I'm like, hey, Dad, I want to go and take 6 months and I want to travel. I haven't traveled in a while. So he's, as my dad has always been super supportive, he was like, Absolutely.
Well,
and
we're nowhere without good parents, for sure.
let me know where you want to go. Let me know where you want to go, and I'll find some time to meet you there.
Yeah.
Right. So what I did was I booked a flight into Cairo, Egypt. And about 6 months later, I had a return flight home from Thailand, from Bangkok. And that in between took me from Egypt to India to Vietnam to Nepal to Bhutan, and then finally to Thailand.
A lot of Asian-leaning countries you're traveling in then, huh?
Yeah. I hadn't been back to Asia since we left Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of one of these opportunities for me to see lots of places that I'd never seen, but also kind of reintroduce myself to the fascination of Southeast Asia and Asian culture.
Wow.
And so while I was traveling, I wasn't staying in fancy hotels. It was like hostels, it was rentals, it was, really trying to live among the people. I got I think a really strong appreciation for how people lived in their daily lives all around the world in a very kind of condensed, window of time. And this idea of heritage, our kind of flagship fast casual concept, sort of sparked in me a couple of months in. And, like ideas tend to do, it just, latched on to me, and it became the only thing that I could think about, as I was moving from place to place. And so I found myself spending a lot of time in cafes and on beaches and in random places, really just doing a lot of people watching, but also then writing ideas that eventually crystallized
into this concept.
Into heritage. Yeah.
Your menu screams worldly, obviously. So that's a really neat backstory to that, just given the true meaning of that word. And so that really solidifies it for me. Good job in that. My God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your story is so amazing. I mean, I have to say that I grew up in the food industry, and then I wanted to get a real job in the real world and be a grown up. And I started working in the tech industry for a little while, and I was going pretty strong in there for a long time until the wheels came off. And in 2000, the first layoffs of the tech world. And that's what forced me to come back into the food industry. And I'm really glad that happened. But at the time, I was trying to get out of this thing that was more of a family business for me. And then, after that, I went into more corporate stuff with like Starbucks and Jamba Juice and everything. So it's funny how we all get pulled into the food industry, and it's almost like it was meant to be for you and for all of us.
Ben, I got a question for you. One thing that kind of resonates with me that maybe we have some parallels in is a lot of restaurant owners, come from the chef highway, right? They're in the kitchen. They're creative. They've worked for a lot of top chefs and around, wherever they're living, and then they want to open their own concept in a restaurant. You came from front of house. Yeah. I came from front of house. I love the hustle and grind. I love all the working gears and parts to make this thing go. I'm not saying I'm not creative. I know you're very creative, but you have influence on your menus and what you serve, but you came from a different side than most.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've never called myself a chef. I like to cook, but I'm not a chef by any means. I've always found that the right culinary influences found their way into my life at opportune times and in opportune ways. Just kind of keeping your mind open and heart open to establishing new relationships. But for me, obviously I love food and I love, culinary, but the fascination for me with restaurants has always been, I just think there's such amazing microcosms of business in general. To be a restaurant, to be a successful restaurant, you need to do so many little things right. And you need to constantly be critiquing what you're doing to try to improve because of how competitive the landscape is. And so I was always attracted to, frankly, the challenge of restaurants. And you hear, obviously, going into them before you own them, it's the worst investment in the world. And the failure rate. Yeah. And in some kind of sick, twisted way, that challenge resonated with me. And, like running a long race.
Yeah, I was just going to make that parallel.
There are moments in that race and in this journey, certainly, where you're like questioning everything that you've done, right? And you're questioning, why am I doing this to myself, right? And it isn't always, I haven't always been able to pull myself out of that hole on my own. I've always found that, like, your foxhole, your wife, your business partner, your friends, your parents, like, they've so many times throughout these past 9 years of owning and operating restaurants, they've been the ones in my foxhole that have kind of pulled me out of it. And so there are a lot of parallels for me to running races and to owning and operating restaurants that I find fascinating. And I find that, the fact that I've been able to get back into fitness, it's helped me mentally, spiritually, helped me be, I think, a better owner or small business owner.
Yeah, good. I mean, either we're sick mentally or healthy mentally, but this is all good. I'm in line with you. Patrick, how did you hear about Heritage Eats?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny talking about inspiration. I believe, and I'm not 100% sure, that we may have had a vendor in common. His name was David Robinson, and he worked for American Paper. I was talking to him about, kind of a concept that I wanted to do. And he said, you really should check out this place in Napa called Heritage Eats. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go check it out. So me and my wife went out there to Napa, and I was like, this is exactly what I want.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a perfect concept, kind of using heritage meats and, organic ingredients and everything like that. So tell us a little bit more about Heritage Eats.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 4 brands, but Heritage is, my first child, right? And so it always holds, it'll always hold a kind of a place near and dear. I mean, it's really become a community-driven restaurant in Napa. I think that's been one of the keys to our success. We've always, I think, been occupied a space in town of trying to find the right intersection between quality and price, thereby value to the consumer. The Napa Valley obviously is known for super high end, 2 Michelin, 3 Michelin star restaurants. And
you still need a lot for families to go together and have healthy and tasty food at the same time.
That's it. Yeah,
this is your local spot. Yeah,
that's it. So I think we're celebrating this Saturday. Actually, is our 9th birthday. I'm going to be sitting in a dunk tank for 3 hours in a parking lot.
I'm going to have to roll out there and get a part of
that. Don't worry. Will you let our listeners know where your other locations for Heritage are?
Yeah. So actually, at the moment, we only have 1 location for Heritage.
Okay.
We opened in Walnut Creek back in, and this is just all part of the story, right? I'm not ashamed by it. Failure is a part of the journey. And as hard as it is, we opened a spot in Walnut Creek in 2018. It was a beautiful restaurant. We were super proud of it. We spent a ton of time, a ton of money on building it out. And, we did okay. We went into COVID kind of turning the corner, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm sure we've all had stories now of the pandemic, like 2020, as traumatizing as it was, it became an accelerator in so many ways for me to say, you know what? I've got to amputate one arm. We're too small of a business to be running both of these stores. And I made the decision early on in the pandemic that we weren't going to reopen the Walnut Creek location.
Yeah.
And as hard as that was, that decision has opened up so many doors for us as a company.
You may have not made that decision without your background, without your, how you got here. If you were, if a lot of chef owners, God bless them, there's so much emotional attachment to it, and that's no disrespect in any way, but you made the right decision on how to get to a better end.
Yeah, exactly.
And so a lot of people don't make that decision. Actually, they just let it carry on, and then they just bleed themselves dry. And I think it's really important. And I try to tell my clients all the time, like, you got to stop the bleeding and you got to make a decision. By not making a decision, you're just making this worse, and it's going to carry on. So it's true. I do commend you for being able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes your first loss is your best loss, and so it was like, we've sunk a bunch of money into this and we're never going to see a return if we close, but we also might never see a return if we stay open, and we're just going to continue to basically burn money. And so for me, it was like, let's just amputate the arm, refocus our energy. And that has then allowed us, through our Napa location, we broke through a glass ceiling of sales. 2020 at the time was our busiest year we had ever had, ironically enough, leaning into a lot of these things that fast casuals could lean into that fine dining or full service dining couldn't. And then through, a little bit of foresight and luck, we were like, hey, let's acquire a food truck and build a food truck brand. And then we acquired another legacy catering business in the Valley and turned it into Napa Valley Lobster Co.
Wow,
and then,
which I love.
Yeah. And so then we started thinking of ourselves more as kind of a creative restaurant group that had heritage at our core. But then we started thinking about how, we could lean into some of the goodwill that we've built up in the community and just further tap into some of the creative juices that were flowing in us at the time. And so then my wife being half Mexican, her family being from Mexico City, I felt like I was mentally ready. In 2022, I was mentally ready to kind of get back on the horse.
I feel taco talk. There's taco talk coming right now. Huh?
Okay. There's always time for taco talk.
Good.
Man.
Okay.
And so I felt mentally ready to kind of get back on the horse. I sort of grieved enough and healed enough from the Walnut Creek episode experience and learned enough from that. I felt like, you know what? I think we're ready as a company, and I'm ready personally to kind of get back on the horse and recreate something that is going to live in more of a permanent capacity, a 7-day a week, fast casual concept. And so this idea of Mothers kind of came about just because for my wife and I, tacos and taqueria culture in Mexico City, having visited a number of times, it just spoke to who we were, who she is, who I am. But we didn't want to just be a Mexican restaurant at the same time, so we traveled to Mexico City and met with her family and ate at loads and loads of places with me and her and my business partner and my dad, and felt like we could add to the dialogue with Mothers.
Yeah.
And so we worked with a design group in Mexico City. We worked with a chef, a female chef, a James Beard Award-winning chef who was born and raised in Mexico City on a lot of the recipes. And so that was definitely a leap of faith, but
wow. Yeah, it's a good story. I think a screenplay is in order here pretty soon about you. I mean, it's quite a story. I think, selfishly, we want to kind of ask some questions about, what the future holds. What is your vision? How do you expand? And what is your vision for expansion of, Mother's Tacos or Heritage Eats? And kind of, we're going to move into a little bit about good and bad experiences looking for locations,
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, despite my analytical background, when it comes to real estate, I prescribe very much to the heart flutter methodology of real estate, where if it doesn't make your heart beat a little bit faster, if it doesn't make your stomach, that anxious feeling that we've all had, if it doesn't give you that feeling, then it's probably not worth a whole lot more time and energy. And so as Patrick knows, as I've, peppered him with questions and he's sent me ideas, like, he'll send me an idea and an hour later, I'll get in my car and an hour later I'll be there and I'll drive by it and I'll look at it. I'll make a pretty quick determination. Like, does this feel right? First and foremost. And then once something can feel right, then it's like, okay, now let's sort of dig into the data a little bit. Let's look at, the population, the visibility, the traffic counts. Who's our customer? Know our customer. And then is our customer there, right? But for me, it all starts with an emotional gut feel rather than a truly kind of purely data-driven approach. So with Mothers, I mean, we've been on a search, Mothers for us right now, I like to consider it like my fighting brand. Not that we aren't trying to grow heritage or aren't trying to grow the food truck brand or the Lobster Co brand, but Mothers, we definitely built with more scale in mind. We tried to take a lot of the learnings from heritage, the things that make it popular and successful, but also the things that make it difficult to scale and difficult to grow. We tried to make a lot of decisions with Mothers kind of through that prism, through those lenses. We were relatively location agnostic. I wasn't particularly married to a city within the Bay Area or even the Bay Area in general. We started looking in Dallas. We started looking in Austin with the idea being, hey, these could be gateway markets for us, right? And strong food markets for us. And then my curiosity and search took us a little bit down the Southern Cal corridor. I talked with Patrick a lot about Santa Barbara and SLO And so, I don't know if I mentioned it, Patrick, or not, but we're submitting plans for a location in Ventura.
Nice.
Tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
Tomorrow.
I
So
like
in
that.
Ventura,
Not a saturated community yet. I like that. It's
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
one.
isn't there a place there called Johnny's Tacos, which is supposed to be like a really well-known brand?
I don't know if there's a space in Ventura called Spencer McKenzie's. There might be a Johnny's. It doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. There was a place that I thought was like really well known. And this was many years ago, but I think that's an excellent like place for you guys. I know you were in Santa Barbara and all that, but yeah, tell us more about that.
Yeah, so it's a bit more of an underserved market. It has strong. It's a big city. It's over 100,000 people.
Yeah.
It's kind of the last affordable bastion of beach towns. In California, really. There's a strong Latino population. There's a really strong and vibrant younger community in Ventura. And we settled on a project that is new development, but it has a lot of grit and a lot of character that makes it feel established and a little bit older, a little bit edgier, that I feel like kind of works with the Mother's brand. And so another benefit of going down that direction is, we're able to acquire a full Type 47 liquor license much more affordably than here in the Bay Area.
I think we've commented on that on past episodes, just so listeners are aware. I mean, $250,000 in San Francisco or less, but in Napa, even more. It's pretty wild, the investment you have to acquire one. And can I ask how much it is down there? I can look it up, but
yeah, so it's more in like the 40 to 50K range.
Oh, great.
So not peanuts, but still it's a lot more affordable. So anyway, so we're excited about that. I mean, it's definitely the sort of thing now. It's occupying a lot of our time, a lot of our energy, getting plans together. We've been popping up in that community once a month now for the last couple of months, just doing little taco pop-ups at local businesses and trying to lean into that community angle like that, that has been successful for us here in the Valley.
How are you building that team? So are you moving somebody from Napa down there as your general manager? Tell us a little bit about how you're putting that team together.
Yeah, so myself and my business partner, Charles, neither of us are planning to relocate down there permanently. We both have roots here and families here, but Ventura for us, so we're planning on hiring a local team, general manager, probably kitchen manager, and trying to hire a fully local staff. Certainly in the early days of opening that restaurant, as we're, drinking water out of a fire hose and doing lots of things wrong and trying to learn a lot and change a lot in the early days, we'll be down there quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, it'll mostly be manager kind of locally run. We haven't necessarily enjoyed, but we've gotten used to our, 2-3 a.m. departures from Napa, which can get us down to Ventura, by about 8:30.
Yeah.
So in the event that, we need to get down there, it's a drive, which for us was important versus having to deal with flights and things like that.
I looked at a location I had an SF location in for 10 years, and I looked in San Luis Obispo and right in downtown and found that this location my heart fluttered for, like you pointed out, right?
Yeah.
And then I did the drive a couple times doing my due diligence, and I was like, with 2 other restaurants in the Bay, in NorCal, I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I said, I can't do this unless we move here.
I can't do it every day, but I've actually come to enjoy the rigor of it.
Yeah.
And so, we get down there, we make it happen, and we just do it. You just do what you need to do.
You're exposing yourself in a lot of ways here, man. Yeah. We see you. We see what's going on in that head. So you sound like, it's very clear to me, very clear to whoever's listening. You're highly intelligent. You're really good at what you do. You're self-motivated to a fault, probably. Do you, where do agents come in to play with you? Do you use agents as a resource? What are some of your experiences in the past with doing locations, leases, or I don't know if you've bought and sold any, of your brick and mortars yet, but.
Yeah. So when we found the Heritage location, we had to there was key money. So we had to acquire a lease. I didn't have any experience working with agents at that time. So for me, it was cold calling businesses that I thought maybe were, on the brink. And I got lucky, frankly, with that particular location. It was an old firewood cafe, pizza joint. with Mothers, we had a local real estate agent, but for me also, it was more of like the pound of pavement. I'm the kind of guy, yes, I like to see things on paper, but I really need to see things in person for myself. Google Maps just doesn't quite.
You're a kick the tire guy. You got to be.
I definitely need to touch it. I definitely need to touch it. And so with the Mother's location, we knew that we wanted to open in Napa for that particular one. So it was just, I spent a lot of time driving around, knocking on doors and calling on vacant spots. Patrick has always been and I know we're going to do a deal together one of these days in
one
time.
day.
Patrick has always just been a good resource for me. I appreciate what you guys do because I feel like you're a lot more privy to deal flow. I find that once spaces hit LoopNet or they become vacant, yeah, you can find some diamonds in the rough, but oftentimes like they've gone that route because for a good reason. So I find that with what you guys do where we can potentially take spaces off the market before they even come on the market, I like that hunt. I like turning over those stones. I like the fact that you guys are talking with operators on the buy side and the sell side. And so, I definitely see a place for what you guys do. I definitely respect and appreciate what you guys do and know that in time, Patrick and I are going to do a deal.
You're going to get there. Here's his sales pitch. It's coming.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding.
I've been in your shoes. I found it really difficult as a buyer to locate spaces and, working with agents. So I've been kind of in the reverse of where I am right now. What would you think would make this whole process of you looking for the right space easier for you? Is there any misses that by agents or, this whole process that you think would be, make the system better?
I don't know if I have a good answer for you right now. I would say to people that are out there that are maybe listening to this, like you guys are busy, you guys are representing a lot of people. You guys it's like going to the doctors, going to the hospital. You've got to be your own advocate. No one's going to look harder for something than you. And so like, I always find that the agents are great and are more willing to put in the hard time when they see an operator themselves putting in a hard time and doing their own research and driving, for 6-8 hours a day through markets and jotting down notes and providing you guys with information so that you feel like it's time well spent on your end to go out and continue the hard work, So I feel like oftentimes people just think that agents are just supposed to give me all the answers and present me with all the locations. And then there's this sense of frustration when that doesn't happen, but they're not looking in the mirror and they're not willing themselves to spend those 6-8 hours a day for 4 or 5 days in a month or even more than that to do their own work.
You're putting more work on your guys' plate, on your side's plate to do the work. And I appreciate that though. I mean, I still in my head think of myself as a restaurateur. Well, I don't have restaurants anymore, but when we can talk those same channels, the same language, it really streamlines this stuff. And I think that's what Patrick and I pride ourselves on. And to work with someone of your caliber would be anyone like you or you. It's fantastic. It really is helpful. It gets it done. So,
you got to be hungry, man. You got to be hungry.
You have to be hungry.
Yeah.
So what do you think, PT? Can we drop a bonus question on him or what?
I think you need to drop the bonus question on him.
All right. So this is what we normally have been asking, and I'm not asking you this. I'm just going to let you know what we normally ask. We normally have been asking, what would you do if you have to work but didn't need the money? What would you do? But we're going to scratch that for you because we modified it for Ben. It's the Ben modification. If money was no option, where would you travel to right now? Where would you go right now if no money was option?
Mexico City.
Got it.
I love Mexico City. It's my dream for my wife and my family to have a flat or a little casita in Mexico City for a period of time. And to answer your first question, what would I do if money wasn't an object? Like, I'm doing it, man. I really am. I really am doing it right now. And I Yeah, the businesses, they provide a life for my family, and I've been able to build a family and, start a family and all these things. But sometimes the money just becomes a distraction, man.
Yeah.
It just becomes a distraction. Yeah. And it's like, I'm thinking about someday what the finish line might look like, but I'm just trying to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to enjoy the path. And so
did you see, Patrick, did you just notice what he just said? Because in every single episode we've had so far, this question we did not plan this. Everyone said, well, I'm kind of doing it. Or, well, I would work in my restaurant. We had an attorney on last week, and it was, I kind of would go own my restaurant and work in a restaurant. So we don't do this for money, folks. We all do not do this for the money. Of course, success is paramount, but we love it.
I've actually been to Mexico City. Me and my wife went there. We stayed in the neighborhood. I believe it was called Condesa. We came across this one taqueria, which was on a corner, and they pride themselves on guisados tacos. They're the stewed, and they had these clay bowls. There's like 14 or 15 of them. Every day it would be different. And they had everything from vegetarian stews to meaty stews. And it was like the perfect place for both me and my wife to go because she's vegetarian and I obviously love meat. So
Patrick.
Mexico City it's a diamond in the rough. We really enjoyed that place. And I can totally see how you were inspired by the flavors of that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it speaks to my soul, that particular city. Every time I go there, I fall even deeper and more deeply in love with it. So,
wow. You've said so many things that show what heart and what passion you put into, and life experience that you put into your concept. So, I mean, you're one of a kind. We really appreciate you so very much for doing this. And I want everyone to go check out Heritage Eats, Mother's Tacos. Keep an eye out for the expansion and the California takeover, okay?
Love it, man. Love it. Love it. Let's go, man. Let's go.
Good. All right. So I'm going to let our listeners know now, after thanking you again, thanks so much, Ben. We appreciate you. Let us know what's coming up for next episode. Is that good with you, Patrick?
Do it.
All right. So next episode, you're going to join us for episode 5. We'll have SF Salsa King and the mayor of the Mission. Those are some of his AKA nicknames. Victor Escobedo. He owns Papalote and has 2 SF locations. Papalote is renowned for its family heirloom salsa, a treasured recipe passed down to Victor through his family roots. His salsa gained national recognition when he bested celebrity chef Bobby Flay in the salsa showdown on the show Throwdown with Bobby Flay. He's a colorful personality, and we're excited to have him on. So thanks again for listening. I'm Andy. We got Patrick. Thank you, Ben. And we're going to see you next time.
If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to worry about missing an episode, you can follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you found today's episode interesting or useful, please share it with someone you think would benefit and consider leaving a rating and review.
Reviews help restaurant owners or buyers just like you discover this podcast and benefit from the important topics covered in the episodes. Your opinion matters to us as a listener, so feel free to leave topic suggestions and feedback for us, as we will use these to tailor the episodes to you and help you get the most out of listening.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode of Restaurant Deal Making Exposed. If you're considering selling your business and would like a free consultation, reach out to Patrick and Andy at therestaurantsalesbroker.com or visit www.therestaurantsalesbroker.com to learn more.